Hello and welcome to the AskDrBen podcast. I'm your host, Ben Johnson. As a holistic-minded physician, I've spent the last 20 years looking outside the box and conducting research to find the true causes of skin conditions and other diseases. And while the focus of my work has been on aesthetic medicine and unlocking the secrets to reversing skin damage, this podcast will also include many other exciting revelations pertaining to you and your family's health and well-being. So let's get started. Oh man, guess what we're doing today? We are doing our first video podcast edition. Today's a special one. Usually one of the most popular topics that I can discuss is aging, and today will be no exception. Now, will I fit it all into one slightly extended version, or am I going to have to divide into two? It remains to be seen. I'm a bit free-floating today. Sometimes I like to take notes and follow a little bit of a script, but I'm going to see where my intuition takes me as we dive into aging. So let's start off by identifying why I should know something about this. Yes, I'm an MD. I was trained at Creighton Medical School, and most of what I'm going to say today has little to do with any of the education I received through that process, because I don't feel like we're taught exactly what we need to know in medical school. And so it's been a real blessing for me to branch out, to realize that there's wisdom in so many different aspects of the varying philosophies out there, the medical, whether or not we're talking about Eastern medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and Western medicine, naturopathy, looking at all the variety of therapeutic herbs that we find on the planet. And of course, analyzing the medicines and the supplements of today to determine, is there a proper road to travel in order to really master is not the right word, but to really understand how to navigate the challenges of today. So let me start there. Let's start with the challenges of today. What's it like for those of you that might be in your 20s or 30s? Lucky you, by the way, or I guess maybe not lucky you, because the world's looking awfully nasty out there. But I will say lucky you in the sense that you have a pretty clean slate to work with, and you have a real opportunity to make changes. And so I want to help you navigate those decisions, because bad advice is being given out there. Let me give you a good example. Preventative Botox. That's straight up bad advice. Any Botox is bad advice, but preventative Botox is, well, without, let's just say batshit crazy. I guess that's PC enough. And then the other things that, by the way, wearing my readers today so that you will think I know more than I do. I got to try to look smart if we're going to turn these podcasts into videos. But the thing about aging, and the number one source of aging that I've identified, is emotional stress. Emotional stress is the number one source of aging. This is something that becomes increasingly challenging, because as we age, one of the other things I've learned is hormonal imbalances create emotional triggers in our experience. In other words, it's hard to manage stress well when your hormones are imbalanced. It actually causes anxiety and depression in a lot of people. And I don't know the exact ratio, like if it has something to do with the fact that, progesterone might be relatively high to estrogen in the body, or it might be testosterone and estrogen, or it might be testosterone and progesterone. Like, it's really hard to know. I have heard from several women that when they went on progesterone, it seemed to help their anxiety. So it probably does have something to do with progesterone. But as a lot of people are finding, when you go in to get your hormones checked, which I don't necessarily advise, just for the record, because I don't, it doesn't really matter what the snapshot of my hormones are at any given moment, as much as it matters what are my symptoms and what are the reasons why my hormones are out of whack. You see, your body's not just misbehaving because it's getting old and it's getting forgetful. It's unbelievable. Your body is the most brilliant machinery you could ever imagine. I mean, they're still to this day trying to figure out how to make billions, if not trillions of dollars of servers behave in a way that can somehow match the amazing ability for the brain to grasp concepts, to collate data in rapid fashion, and to make decisions based on that. So that's your brain, which is the dumbest part of you. The smart part of you is the cells. And you've heard me talk before about how your body does run on divine consciousness. Like literally, there is a your cells are able to tap into, let's just say, you can describe it a lot of different ways, but your cells are tapping into a universal knowledge grid that has to exist out there because the world doesn't make sense any other way. The human body doesn't make sense any other way. The best way to put it is, let's just look at your heart. Your heart just keeps beating. Why does it keep beating? Why does it stop beating? These are these are above our pay grade. The breaths you take automatically while you're awake, while you're asleep, never thinking about it, those are being told to do that. There is no cell in your body that is like, I will always make sure that I can trigger a heartbeat, X amount of seconds after the last one, or none of that exists. So there has to be some intelligence that drives the human body and all of the amazing things it does. If you sprain your knee, a million different things happen in the first 5 minutes. A million different, intelligent, perfectly timed things happen to respond to that injury in the first 5 minutes. How could that possibly be? And, it's the same thing, you could look to animals and say, how do the animals know to run to the hills before a huge tsunami shows up? Again, there is this divine universal knowledge grid that we tap into. And you've heard me say that I believe that my intuition is derived in great part from inspiration from the Holy Spirit. And that's my definition of divine consciousness. That's my definition of the intelligence grid. But I'm not so sure that that is the exact definition of what powers the innate intelligence of the cells of our body. But just know they are. They're operating at your highest and best at all times to repair things as best as possible, to kill the infections as best as possible, to defend you from the next event by training the immune cells to be smarter for the next exposure, by immediately figuring out from something new that comes into your environment, immediately figuring out all the different pathways it can use to protect and, just to defend the body from further harm. So that's happening at all times. And so when I talk to you about how hormones are distorted, I'm here to tell you your body is tracking at a pico level, a tiny little amounts in your system. It is tracking exactly how much estrogen, estriol, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone you have. And it's also tracking how much estrogenic or testosterone mimicking chemicals you have in your system and the danger of those and where they're at and how well they're isolated in your fat cells or where they're sitting that could potentially cause cancer. So like, for example, a lot of times pesticides are found in a breast tissue and they're estrogenic, I believe, and they're carcinogenic, right? That means they're cancer causing. And so the body has to navigate that and decide the best ways to protect it at all times. And one of the ways that it does that is it lowers the production of your hormones. And yes, sometimes it might just lower estrogen. Sometimes it might just lower estradiol or estriol. And as a result, depending on one of those three, and none of this is completely well understood in medicine yet, but depending on which one of those threes may be suppressed in manufacturing, that can affect how much progesterone the body wants to have bioavailable and how much testosterone it wants to have bioavailable. But for some people, it'll shift your estrogen over into testosterone. For other people, it'll lower the testosterone because the estrogen's low and your progesterone. Some of this has to do with the precursors that stimulate hormone production. So sometimes taking a supplement like DHEA is what is needed for your body to be able to respond. But I digress, as I often do on my podcast, because what I'm really wanting to talk to you about is the idea that stress is the number one source of aging in your body. And we don't know exactly how thought patterns trigger actual damage to the system. But I don't want you to think of it as thought patterns trigger inflammation as much as I want you to think of it as thought patterns cause damage to your body, and then a repair process ensues that Western medicine has defined as inflammation. Okay? There really, inflammation is completely misunderstood. Now, that being said, one of the identifying number one causes of aging is chronic inflammation. And so, what that's trying to distract you from is the chronic damage that your body's facing. So, let's just say, first and foremost, in order to manage this world today, you need to work on becoming an observer. What do I mean by that? You need to become less reactionary. Every event that happens to you, I want you to look at it like you're standing away from your mind. You're standing outside of your vision. So you can watch something going on in front of you, but it doesn't trigger a significant emotional reaction because you're just observing. It's like it's not even happening to you. That is a really good practice, and something I've actually become really good at myself. And what it allows you to do is stay in control a lot of the time. So let's say you're driving on the highway and someone cuts you off in a really dangerous way. Instead of freaking out and screaming at them, you observe. Okay, I survived that near miss. Yelling at that person through the window of the car is only going to harm my body. It is not going to have any impact on the person who just drove away. And so being an observer in that, and you realize that a few minutes later, you've calmed down, hopefully. Some people do have trouble with even that, but you've calmed down and you realize, what did that serve me? So I'm just here to tell you the vast majority of anger outbursts that you're having are causing you harm. And not that there's not a place for anger, but they are causing you harm. And you should try to minimize that. All the times you're fearful of what's happening tomorrow, what's happening next week, fearful of potential, like developing a health condition, fearful of what other people are thinking about you. Fear is a significant part of the stress-induced inflammatory pathway. Yep, I use the word even though I'm telling you not to think of it that way. I might start just calling it the repair pathway. It just doesn't have the same impact on you, I think. So you have there's so much fear and anger going on right now in the world that it just has to be the first thing I discuss when I'm telling you how to protect yourself from aging. And it is the number one reason why you age, but certainly not the only reason. So write that down, make a mental note to take better care of your mental health. But let's, I guess, we're covering it, so I should speak on it, and I'll just tell you, we have two supplement elixirs. One of them is called Emotional Well-Being, and one of them is called Relax. usually I start with emotional well-being, but people with significant anxiety, I put them on both. And boy, did they make a huge difference. Like I'm telling you, we've been able to get people off of antidepressants, anxiety medicines. We're helping them get to sleep when stress is the reason they're not sleeping well. And so huge, huge opportunity there. The caution for you is so many people right now are going on antidepressants. And I'm not just, hey, listen, if you have severe depression, you work with your psychiatrist, you work with your psychologist, you figure out what's best for you. But generally, I will say that most antidepressants do very little to help you, and many of them harm you. And so when you get on them, they're because they mess with your neurochemistry, it's hard to get off of them. And the longer you're on them, the harder it is to get off of them. And they're hurting your liver in a lot of cases, and they're hurting your brain neurochemistry in a lot of cases. And for many people, it's not really that they help that much. It was more that when people tried to finally stop when they realized it wasn't helping that much, that they really became depressed because then maybe their serotonin levels weren't able to produce like they were because of the effects of that drug. So I'm not a big fan of that, and I encourage you to consider holistic alternatives first. And always remember, if you have environmental depression, if your spouse just died, or your child just died, or you just lost your job in your house, or like bad things are happening in your world, depression is an understandable emotion. It doesn't mean you should be on medication for it. So the first thing you need to do is lift yourself up out of that, of course, and yeah, I guess that's a video for another time. But I just want to tell you, don't reach for the chemistry, don't reach for the pharma first, especially when it's an environmental event that really triggered your sadness. Okay, when it comes to hormonal anxiety, I'm seeing a lot of people opting for magnesium and, of course, an antidepressant. So, magnesium is another big go to for people. And there are definitely forms of magnesium that are have more of an impact on your brain over your body, but it's not necessarily a positive impact. And almost always, I find magnesium is toxic to the body. I've only found that magnesium chloride and magnesium chelate are the two, and I don't want the chelate to be bisglycinate or glycinate. So it's really hard to find a good magnesium, but most people think, oh, I know why I'm anxious because I have a shortage of magnesium. Not the case. It's not the case. By the way, 10 minutes in or whatever I'm in, we're going to have two parts to this. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh, I'm definitely going down a little few too many rabbit holes, but is it really too many when all I have to do is keep making, series 2 and 3 of this podcast because aging is a really important one. It's probably the most important one to people, especially when I'm talking about aging as it relates to quality of life. Like it's not just about how do I look better as I get older. It's how do I feel better as I get older? How do I hit the 70s and 80s still active and sharp in my brain? And so that's what we have to cover in this series, and it's really important. So magnesium's another one for emotional unrest. Again, this is all basing on this idea that we've got to lower your stress-based inflammatory pathways, mainly the stress part. We don't have to lower the inflammation. That happens naturally when you are less stressed. Are there any other supplements I would bring up? No, I'll leave it there. I would just say again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you make real efforts in the coming years to learn how to manage, become an observer of the world around you, be less engaged initially. You still have your emotional highs and lows. Emotions are a part of the beautiful part about being a human. You want to have emotions, but you want to be able to push them through, process them, and release them, and not let them simmer, not let them stay as like this little trigger thought that you constantly go back to. Like a lot of unfortunate people who went through severe trauma as a child, it's really hard to kind of release the impact of that memory or those memories. But again, emotional well-being elixir is amazing for that. And I just would encourage you to do that. Okay, we've covered problem number one, which is try your best to find peace in whatever pathways. And that could be yoga, that could be meditation, that could be prayer. I honestly think prayer is the optimal answer. In fact, it's proven in clinical trials that people that went and read the Bible actually lowered their anxiety, depression better than any medication could. So if you're open for that, I absolutely encourage that. But there are other pathways for those that haven't quite got to that point in their lives, if they ever will. Let's hope they do. Okay, number two. Number two in this, how do I manage and navigate this toxic world? You should know that the air around you is the number two cause of aging, and it's primarily the carbon monoxide from our vehicles. I know there's a lot of debate about electric and the conspiracies, and you know me, I love my conspiracies about electric cars and the problems, but it's a full slam dunk, of course, to move to electric cars. The number one reason being to eliminate the carbon monoxide poisoning that is killing. I believe it's identified as the number two killer in the world and aging us along the way, of course. And so we know carbon monoxide is severely damaging. Of course, there's all kinds of other chemicals in the air that we're breathing in that are causing harm that aren't as clearly identified. And so my advice to you there is, I think the best advice that relates to this particular part of the aging process is oxygenation. CO, carbon monoxide, is a harsh dominator over oxygen when it comes to your cells. And so the best battle you can have is to have more oxygen in your system to fight that exposure. And one of the ways we do that is at Osmosis. I have this product called Immune Activator that has a molecule known as ozonized ethyl oleate or trioxylane. It's our patented product. It's unbelievable at restoring deep oxygenation in your system. And that may sound like a funny word. I guess that might even be the first time I've used that. But what it means is that there's the oxygen you breathe in and out that your body absorbs and utilizes for various processes in your system. You know, everything. I mean, all the billions of processes that go on. It's really, again, just amazing to see how intricate the pathways of the body are. So that oxygen is going towards that. But for some reason, there must be a threshold where if you don't get enough oxygen in a day, because remember, we're all shallow breathers by nature. One of the terrible habits of the human condition is that we tend to be shallow breathers and we miss out on that opportunity to get significant oxygenation. Also remember, you're never more oxygenated than you are when you're an infant, and that just diminishes through childhood into adulthood. You get less and less capacity in your lungs, less and less capacity in, yeah, just general oxygenation potential. So exercise becomes an important component, and exercise should be part of your daily routine. I love it if you got 30 to 45 minutes. Some people believe in weightlifting. I think there's a place for that, but oxygenation, when it comes to aging, to me, cardio trumps the weightlifting. Again, not necessarily to get the perfect ripped body, but for the health of your body, oxygenation through these heavy breathing activities actually makes a big difference for the strength of your immune system, your ability to fight viruses, and all those things. So that's one of the pathways. Immune activator, I take it every day, and I swear by it, and it's really phenomenal for building immunity because your immune cells use oxygen to kill viruses, to kill pathogens, and so that's why your immune fighting capacity is better when you're young as opposed to when you're older. So in order to fight that aspect of aging, I like Immune Activator, and I like exercise every day. Second thing I would say on that is you really need to live make good smart choices about your living environment. And I know economically that's not always feasible, but I wouldn't live downtown in a busy city where there's a lot of cars driving back and forth unless if I had a choice. I would not live downtown for the reason I just identified. I wouldn't live in a farming community where all around me pesticides are being sprayed into the air at all times, and I can't sit outside on a spring morning without the fear of 1,000 carcinogens being inhaled into my system through the air. So, you really have to try to make the choice to get out of those communities if at all possible. And of course, the ultimate dream is that the whole world finally wakes up and we realize that cancer is not something we have to try to figure out how to cure. It's something we have to figure out how to stop causing. And first thing you do is you remove carcinogens from our environment. Hello, pesticides. Hello, food preservatives. Hello, I don't know if chlorine is a carcinogen, to be honest. Maybe, maybe not. It's probably more, it's super harmful, but probably not a carcinogen. But no, the chemicals in our foods, many are carcinogenic and many in our tap water are carcinogenic. And so we just need to be mindful of that. And right now, cancers are going crazy. I've talked about in my past pandemic podcasts about why I think that is the case, and it is a tragedy. Suffice it to say, if you've had to do things in the past to be able to travel or to see your mother that you may or may not have wanted to do, you might want to go through what I'll call the osmosis jab detox program, especially if you have long COVID or lingering symptoms just from being exposed to COVID. We treat that and we treat it with unbelievable efficacy. And so don't let yourself and let your body be beaten up by viruses that your immune system is no longer capable of shutting down. If you have long COVID or if you have a reaction to a jab or if you have any autoimmune disease, what your body's telling you is it's lost its ability to fight viruses in an effective way. And the number one way to do that is oxygen. So immune activator is amazing. Of course, our protocols involve immune defense, which is our antiviral. And you absolutely want to contact us for those if you're not aware of what we can do there. Again, I would say 100% efficacy, but it's probably impossible to do that. It's in the high 99s of efficacy. And I'm going to follow you. Like you have a problem, if you don't get a result, you're contacting me. Please contact me. And I'm going to tell you why it didn't work. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do to make it work. And maybe you missed a dose, or maybe you waited more than 12 hours to take your second dose, or whatever the reason might have been. I'm going to get you figured out. And that's my commitment to all my osmosis users while I still have the time. I have to say it's what I do most of the time, and it's a blessing, but it is getting a bit challenging. Actually, setting little nugget that it may be released by the time this podcast is released, but my son built an AI engine that involves all my information from all the years, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty accurate. We're still tweaking it, but I think you're going to find it really helpful if you have a quick question to go to this chat bot and get that answer. It should, again, be on our website, publicly available here, hopefully within a week. Okay, so the other thing to say on this aspect of this carbon monoxide poisoning is what happens with lack of oxygenation, by the way, what happens as you slowly lose your oxygenation capacity is your metabolism slows. The production of those really important molecules in your body called adenosine triphosphate or ATP, they're reduced. The production of those is reduced in the mitochondria, and that leads to a slowdown in hormone production, neurotransmitter production, cellular repair production, muscle performance, cognitive performance, all of it. So I want you to seriously consider to stop being so in love with your antioxidants. It's just it's overwhelming. Your body does love the antioxidant here or there, but you were built, many thousands of years ago. I know some believe it's billions of years ago. I'll just go with my take. You're born many thousands of the human body was built thousands of years ago to manage itself without supplements, right? I mean, supplements are a relatively new thing. Yes, herbal medicine's been around, but you know what I mean by that? Like the herbs that were used over the centuries were they weren't going like, ooh, this resveratrol, you're really gonna want this king blankety blank. You're gonna need that to help, your aging. Your body makes the most important antioxidants and it makes them with high precision with the amounts that you need. And for that reason, you just don't need to supplement. And so, what I'm finding is people who already have low pathogen and viral fighting capacity are putting high doses of resveratrol in their body, high doses of vitamin C or vitamin E into their body, or pick, antioxidant, the next antioxidant of popularity on the list, and it's actually harming them. They did clinical trials on this, guys. Extra vitamin C and extra vitamin E harmed the body, full stop. Resveratrol studies, they were doing them on cancer patients, and they had to halt the study because it hastened death for the children with these cancers. Why? Because their cancers were caused by viruses, and by taking the extra antioxidants, their body couldn't fight the viruses as well. So I'm here to tell you, and this again is supposed to fall under the umbrella of air pollution and carbon monoxide exposure, and that is don't think you need antioxidants to grow old gracefully. That is a misconception. Again, not bad to do 250 milligrams of C a day. No more. No more. You will start to hurt your gut. Not bad to do a little bit of some other antioxidants. I'm a fan of alpha lipoic acid, but never in the megadoses. And don't feel like if you're not taking it on that day that you are in trouble. I get it. Like, you'll see people who go in and they get IV glutathione and it makes this dramatic change, let's say in their Parkinson's symptoms for like a half hour. And so what does that imply? That implies that there are certain pathways that could be benefited with more presence of antioxidant, but we don't know the full picture on that. And your body makes glutathione. And yes, it's possible that in Parkinson's, maybe they're underproducing glutathione, although I don't have any indication of that. And so, again, I just want to remind everybody less is more. When it comes to wellness, less is more. Your body doesn't need as much as you think. People live in different parts of the world with completely different diets, and their body accommodates to the things we have because we were built that way. We're built to accommodate, we're built to rise up. Okay. The next aspect of aging that I want to talk about are the environmental poisons that influence aging, and there's so many of them. We talked about the carcinogens and the ridiculous amount of carcinogens that the Western diet is allowed to put into our food. So first of all, you want to eat organic. Especially fruits and vegetables, you want to eat organic. But the truth is the way they spray a lot of fruits and vegetables, and of course, certain fruits and vegetables have a higher propensity for this, and that is it's still going to be pesticide laden inside the fruit or vegetable, even if they don't spray it on the outside, if it was grown up in that situation. And it's just hard. I know it's just hard for farmers right now because the laws are in place to really prevent them from choosing organic, even if they wanted to. And they don't even know to the extent that they're putting their lives at risk by having farming, by being living in a pesticide-ridden environment. So, how do you avoid this? Well, my best recommendation, and what I tell everybody, is our Skin Defense product is one of the best detox supplements out there just by my analysis of what's out there. It contains, what I try to do whenever I formulate anything is I try to give you something that addresses a category. And so every time I'm like, I just found a new ingredient to add to skin defense that I think works on forever chemicals. I'll announce it once we add it. But the general idea is we're being poisoned a lot by chlorine, so I have the best chlorine remover in the world, sodium thiosulfate in there. We're being attacked by estrogen chemicals, so I have the best estrogen chemical remover in what's called DIM or diindol methane. We're being attacked by a host of different additives and colors and flavors that have damaging effects on the body. And so you want things that accelerate the processing in the liver, like glutathione S-transferase. You want things that accelerate the binding and removal of it in the gut. So things like activated charcoal. All these things are critical in my opinion. Again, you can live, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, because I am in email contact with so many of you with struggling with skin conditions. I am in awe at the dietary habits that many people that struggle with diseases like autoimmune conditions and or digestive issues or skin issues, how clean their diets are. Boy, if you can live that clean, and I'm talking about only organic, no dairy, mostly plants, all cooked at home, never like almost never gets a processed chemical in their body. Power to you. Power to you people. I think that's amazing. So in those people, the use of this type of a skin defense, this type of toxin removal system is unnecessary for the most part. But that is, let's just call it 2% of the population. And so for the other 98% of us that either love dairy and just decide to live with the consequences and try to work around it, this guy, or who love sugar, knowing that it is a harmful substance, especially bleached sugar, which is the standard sugar used in almost every product you buy that has sugar. You really just have to work through that. Obviously, sugar, we use a supplement called Sugar Detox to help with sugar cravings, and also to help protect you from sugar chemicals like NutraSweet and Sweet and Low. I'm not using their chemical names, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm a fan of stevia, but some people like some other choices. So my point is to say that avoiding toxins in your dietary choices is a fantastic idea, and I hope you have the willpower and the financial means and the availability in your area to be able to do that. It is limited in a lot of different states. The store options are just don't have the selections you want. And even in the stores like Whole Foods, it's not as perfect as you'd like it to be. Let's just leave it at that. And so just know that the cleaner that you do that, the cleaner you live there, the more gracefully you will age, and the less we're going to have to do to restore your immunity and restore your gut health. And so I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to be on skin defense if you're living a regular life like the rest of us, like 98% of us, because there's no way to avoid these toxins. The more fast food you ingest, the worse off you're going to be. The more candy you ingest, the worse off you're going to be. The more, well, I'll just stop there. Okay, so the next aspect of aging gracefully that I want to cover is sort of the malnutrition side. And it kind of is a good segue to what we were just talking about, because I just got done telling you that I believe that your body makes vast majority of the antioxidants that it needs, unless it's being absolutely overwhelmed. Like if you're on chemotherapy, your antioxidants aren't going to be able to keep up with that. In fact, I just encourage people to finish that chemo and then let's start working on oxidative repair with immune activator, which actually does an amazing job of that. But I would take immune activator during chemotherapy as well. It does not stop the free radicals from doing their thing. And I'm not, I'm not telling you to get chemo, by the way. I'm just telling you if you opt for chemo, that immune activator is really helpful. But malnutrition. And I just got done telling you that your diet can be a whole variety of things. Bread and water over here, fish fat over there. Plants, all raw meat over there. Like everyone's trying different diets, and for the most part, your body is going to adapt. I'm still a believer in the 50% carbohydrate, 25% protein, 25% fat model as a good strategy to try to employ. But I totally appreciate that the bleached carbohydrates that are being put out in the Western foods are some of the worst carbohydrates that we've had to deal with in many centuries, all by genetic modifications and different choices on how they bleach flour and all the terrible things, all the bad choices that we some point we just have to, as a community, stand up and say, hey, what was his name? It's not doc. Is it Dr. Welton? That was the dentist. Weston Weston Price, Dr. Weston Price, who first analyzed how the effects of sugar and bleached flour and its impact on our gums and our teeth malformation. But then it further analyzed the health and how all of a sudden, diabetes became a thing and all kinds of like heart disease and new things developed in people because of the introduction of those foods. So malnutrition, however, is slightly different in the sense that while I believe that everybody can thrive on different diets, if you're eating what is essentially dead food, like it's been nutritionally deprived, fast food is a classic example of this, where it's just mostly chemical or modified food, or it's been over pasteurized, or it's been overcooked, or the good oils have been fried into oblivion. What ends up happening is your body becomes short of good fats. Your body becomes short of enough protein. Your body becomes short of the other vitamins and minerals that are needed. Now, I'm a believer that if you just drink spring water, you don't need to supplement minerals. And so I'm not a proponent of minerals and electrolytes because I keep finding how often they harm the gut. They are bad for the microbiome. They promote candida. So if you're prone to candida, they're going to push you into either acne or eczema. So I don't propose that. But what I do want to say is with enough suppression from toxins and with enough bad food, and we know like the farming practices in a lot of our farms, they're over farmed, the soil is depleted of minerals, and so everything is pushing us towards being short of things. So I think just the summary I would tell you is it really is important in your aging process just to make sure that you try to eat a balanced diet, that you try to eat whole foods, real food. Raw milk is better than pasteurized milk, but if you're going to get milk, I always get grass-fed organic. And, that is going to be best. If you can actually isolate it to grass-fed organic A2 cows, even a bigger win. But raw milk's pretty good. I just personally didn't like it enough to decide to avoid pasteurization related problems. Okay. So when I talk about deficiencies in fats, I just recently had an interesting email actually from somebody who said they started to take our recovery, which is the most amazing fat fats you can get from a nutritional source. Sea buckthorn has a long history of creating amazing health benefits by ingesting it. And there's sea buckthorn berry, there's sea buckthorn fruit, and there's sea buckthorn seed oil. And all of these are different sources for different fats. So it's really amazing recovery because you can't get seed oil extracted when you eat it. When you ingest a seed, you don't get the advantages of all that seed oil. You might get a little bit of it, but not enough. And so recovery is amazing that way. And for those people who have just trouble swallowing oil or think recovery tastes funny, we have the gel cap coming out here in a couple of weeks. Super exciting. So now you have no excuses to get these amazing omegas in your system. And that's, 3, 6, 7, and 9 are some of the bigger and more important omegas that you want to deal with. Or that you want in your system. But I got this interesting email where a woman who had been struggling with Lyme disease found that by eliminating PUFAs in her diet and through I don't know all the things she excluded. I didn't hear her diet history specifically. I just knew that she was advised to eliminate polyunsaturated fatty acids at all costs because they cause inflammation. And so she wrote me because she got on recovery and her Lyme symptoms started to appear and she wondered what that was. And it's what I try to explain to people. Inflammation is misunderstood. Whenever all the clinical trials that talk about and putting good oils in your body, or I should say, putting PUFAs in your body, or that omega-6 is harmful and you're getting too much of it, and you need to avoid that because it's an inflammatory fatty acid, and it's like it's a misunderstanding of what's going on. Again, the damage is whatever. In this case of this email, the damage is what Lyme and the spirochete from Lyme are doing to her body. What appeared to happen here is by eliminating good fats from her diet, she reduced her immunity. So she didn't have a lot of reactions because a lot of times reactions are related to repair. In other words, when I sprained my knee, the damage to the knee was that initial tear in the ligament. But what hurts me, well, that might hurt a little bit, but what hurts me is the next several days where my knee is hot and swollen and when I walk, it hurts, right? So all that pain is not because of bad inflammation in your knee. Your knee is doing exactly what it's supposed to do to perfectly repair that ligament as best it can. So sometimes repair hurts. And so I was explaining to her that that's what was going on in her system and that what she needed to do was treat her Lyme. And then when she's on recovery, she'll just feel better and better every day. And so we have a protocol for Lyme and hopefully she follows that advice. But again, my point is a lot of people avoid fat because they think it makes them fat. And yeah, I mean, if you eat like I did a lot of pizza last night, and yeah, a lot of pizza is going to make you fat. That kind of fat is going to go into your subcutaneous fat, and that does happen. But these good fats, they get put into cells, they get put to use by your immune cells. They're used to repair damage. Remember, you have good fats all over your body that are being oxidized all the time that need to be replaced. And so if you're not allowing your body to replace the good stuff, then you have a problem. It kind of reminds me too, just as quick tangent as I do, but one of the funny analyses of Elevate is people notice when I go on Elevate, it has CoQ10, super yellow ingredient, CoQ10, right? And they go on Elevate and they're like, my pee is yellow. I must be peeing out the CoQ10. Well, it just takes a little bit of analysis to realize that you put the CoQ10 in your gut and there's no way that it's going from your gut into your kidneys to pee out, into your bladder to pee out. It's not jumping from your gut. It has to go through your body to do that. So what you're actually doing when you see yellow being peed out by taking CoQ10 is your body is replacing CoQ10 in the system. And the old CoQ10 is being dumped out of your kidneys and the new CoQ10 is replacing that. So that's the good news. But my point is to say, your body's always replacing So you need to be mindful of the good ingredients that you take in. That's why, I make targeted supplements that address the ingredients in the body that might need some assistance in repair. Okay, let's see. We've covered the oils. The other thing I want to say on oils is a lot of times I'm seeing people who have significantly dry skin. Like they just can't ever get their skin. Doesn't matter what moisturizer they use, their skin is dry. Or you have dry eyes. Unbelievable number of people. I would say 90% of people with dry eyes have a good fat shortage in their body, a fatty acid deficiency that recovery perfectly responds to. So if you have chronic dry eyes, stop putting the drops in your eyes. That's not a solution. That's a temporary reprieve. The solution is go internal, replace your good fats, and watch and see over a period of a couple, 3 months, how that will improve. Same thing as with the dry skin. Get on recovery. Don't be so scared. People are so scared of fat anymore because they think that all the oils are going to just keep making them fat. And if they just didn't ingest oils and fat,